At 18, my stepmom left her baby with me, then spread lies that I forced her out, and my dad kicked me out. After he passed years later, she returned for his estate, only to learn he'd already signed legal control over to me. Her meltdown was impressive. Hey, Reddit. My dad married the wrong woman, and I got pushed out of my own home piece by piece. I eventually walked away and rebuilt everything on my own, but they still found a way back into my life later. Before that, here's where it started. My name is Nicholas. I'm 23, working in cybersecurity, and raising my half-brother, Jace. People assume that means I grew up stable. I didn't. Most of what shaped me happened before I turned 10, in a house that felt more like a pressure cooker than a home. My parents fought constantly, the same arguments on loop about money, chores, disappointment. I learned early that staying quiet kept me out of the blast zone. My mother eventually checked out altogether, lying on the couch for hours, snapping if I asked if she was okay. Later diagnoses explained some of it, but I'd already learned to take care of myself. When my parents divorced, I felt lighter, even if I couldn't say so out loud. Everyone expected me to fall apart. I just wanted to go to school the next day. That reaction followed me for years. My dad, Weston, got full custody. He was kind but conflict avoidant to a fault. If someone raised their voice, he folded. We lived in a cramped apartment for a while, then eventually moved to a better neighborhood when I was about 12. That's when he met Olivia. She lived a few houses down, always walking her dog like she was waiting to be approached. She introduced herself with a stage-ready smile and told my dad she loved kids. But the way she looked at me felt more like an assessment. Within a week, she was commenting on how quiet and hard to read I was. Always to him, never to me. She became a permanent fixture fast. First evenings, then weekends, then long stretches where she simply didn't go home. By 16, she moved in outright, treating the house like something she'd bought. She rearranged rooms, boxed my things without asking, and created household routines she never followed herself. My dad, wanting peace, agreed to everything. When she started living with us full-time, she made it clear she wasn't joining the household. She was taking charge of it. She'd stand in doorways like an inspector, suggesting new rules and criticizing whatever I did. I'd learned not to push back, but I noticed every double standard. Looking back, that was the real beginning of the story. The point where she stopped pretending to fit into our lives and started shaping them around herself. I was 16 when Olivia made it clear she wasn't living with us. She was taking over. The first morning after she moved in, she stood in my doorway, arms crossed, scanning the room like a landlord inspecting a rental. "This room is perfect for Luna," she said. "She needs her own space. She's very sensitive." I was sitting on the edge of my bed tying my shoes. "That's my room," I said quietly. She didn't look at me. "Your dad and I will figure something out." Weston stepped behind her, rubbing the back of his neck. "Liv, come on. Nicholas needs his space." She turned to him with this slow, disappointed stare. "I thought you wanted us to build a real home together." "I guess I misread things." He froze. That was all it took. One guilt trip, and he caved. The next day he came downstairs while I was grabbing my backpack. "Nick, the basement isn't that bad. We can fix it up together. Make it like a project." I nodded because disagreeing would only stretch the moment out. "Sure. Whatever you want." Olivia walked by holding her dog, her voice bright and fake. "Thank you for being flexible, Nicholas. This will be good for everyone." Moving into the basement felt less like a project and more like a punishment. It had concrete floors, exposed pipes, and a single flickering bulb. Olivia didn't bother hiding how satisfied she was. She carried Luna into my old room like it was some victory parade. A few days later, she introduced something new. A whiteboard hung near the kitchen with a title written in bubble letters. "Household Contribution System." "We're implementing a points system," she announced. "It'll teach structure." She pointed to the board. My name was the only one on it. Weston blinked. "Points for what exactly?" "For access," she said simply. "Laundry, kitchen use, anything shared. Nicholas needs clear expectations." I stared at the board. "I already do all the chores." She shrugged. "Now you'll earn credit for them. It's motivational." That night, when I heated leftovers, she appeared behind me like she'd been waiting for the moment. "You didn't earn enough points today," she said. "That's for people contributing." "I took out the trash and cleaned the bathroom," I said. She walked over to the board and tapped it. "A half-cleaned bathroom isn't a full contribution." Weston came into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "Nick, just play along for now. Liv's trying to help." "I'm hungry," I said. Olivia stepped between us. "You always feel entitled to things, don't you? Your dad pays for that food." When guests came over, she made sure they heard her version of me. "He's very withdrawn. Hard to work with. We're trying to teach him responsibility." After the third time she told a story about me that didn't match reality, I started keeping receipts. Quietly, notes, dates. Eventually, cheap little security cameras I paid for myself. Weston never corrected her, not once. Nick, just don't provoke her, he'd whisper. She's been stressed lately. I'm not provoking anyone, I'd say. He'd sigh. Just go with it. Please. I tried playing by her rules for about a week. I scrubbed the kitchen. She inspected it and wiped one finger across a counter. Oh, she said, guess we'll have to dock points. If I can see dust, it doesn't count. No matter what I did, she erased points or added new rules. It was obvious. The goal wasn't to make me responsible. It was to make me feel like nothing I did counted. So I shifted. I stopped trying to earn her approval and focused on not being home. After school, I took extra shifts at the machine shop. Roger, the supervisor, watched me show up more often. One evening, he handed me a pair of new gloves and said, "Basement living still going on?" I nodded. "Pretty much." He leaned on the workbench. "You saving anything?" "A little." "Save more," he said. "Don't tell anyone what you've got. Some houses don't get better. You just age out of them." It wasn't emotional advice. It was practical. The kind I actually needed. By the time I was 17, my dad made it official. Courthouse wedding, no celebration, just paperwork, rings, and Olivia smiling like she'd finally locked the door behind her. Mom. Olivia announced she was pregnant on a Thursday morning. I was grabbing my boots for school when she said, "We're expecting. Isn't that wonderful?" Her voice had this rehearsed cheerfulness, and she kept her eyes fixed on Weston, not me. Weston looked shocked but happy. "Really? Wow. Liv, that's amazing." She placed a hand on her stomach like she was already posing for a picture. "This changes everything. We need to make sure the house is ready." She didn't say we as in all of us. She meant everyone else needed to adjust around her. From that moment, everything revolved around her pregnancy. The living room filled with magazines, swatches, furniture samples, and baby product catalogs. She talked nonstop about creating a nurturing space, and each day she added another item to the list. Crib, dresser, special lighting, themed wallpaper, a custom rug. Nothing was standard. Everything had to be top-end. Weston tried to keep up, but I heard the strain in his voice. One night he said, "Liv, maybe we should budget this a bit. Some of this is a lot." She crossed her arms. "So you don't want our child to have the best? Your salary is already stretched. I can't do everything on my own." She turned to me next. "And Nicholas is old enough to contribute. A second job wouldn't kill him." I blinked. "I already work after school." "Yes," she said, "but that money goes toward your things. This is a family expense." Weston looked defeated already. "Nick, maybe take on a few more shifts? Just until we get through this." I didn't argue. Arguing changed nothing. "Sure," I said. "I'll talk to Roger." When I mentioned it at the machine shop, Roger just nodded. "Extra hours? I can work you in. You good with that?" "Yeah," I said. "Need the money." He handed me a clipboard. "Clock in whenever you can. But don't bury yourself." I appreciated the warning, even if I didn't listen to it. A week later, Olivia's parents arrived with suitcases and attitudes. They claimed they were there to support the household during this special time, but they treated the place like their property. Her mother walked into the basement on day one and said, "My goodness, still living down here? No wonder he's so strange." Her father inspected the kitchen and asked, "Nicholas, do you even know how to clean this properly? Doesn't look like it." Whenever I stayed quiet, they made comments. "Why doesn't he answer? He's always like this? Maybe it's a behavioral issue." Olivia never corrected them. She encouraged it. Weston tried to keep peace by staying out of every conversation. When her parents said something rude, he'd just glance at me with an apologetic, powerless expression. One night I asked, "Dad, can you talk to them?" He sighed immediately. "Nick, it's only temporary. Please don't start anything." That was the moment I knew he wouldn't protect me anymore. The nursery project became their group hobby. They took over my weekends with mandatory helping sessions. I patched holes, sanded walls, assembled furniture, carried boxes, lifted shelving, all while listening to Olivia's mother critique everything. "That's crooked. You're not strong enough to hold it straight? Stop rushing, Nicholas." I wasn't rushing. Her father was the one drilling holes in the wrong places. But whenever something went wrong, they turned to me. Olivia floated through the mess like a supervisor. "Be careful with the crib, Nicholas. That costs more than your car will." I didn't even own a car. Money became the constant topic. One night, Olivia spread receipts across the dining table. "Weston, we're already exceeding the budget. Your salary is maxed out. We need additional income. Weston rubbed his forehead. I'm trying, Liv. I'm taking all the overtime I can. She pointed at me without looking at me. Nicholas needs to step up. Your son is nearly an adult. He should contribute. I am contributing, I said quietly. She waved her hand. Not enough. Her parents nodded like an audience trained to agree. After they finally finished the nursery, her parents moved out. They didn't thank anyone. They just left instructions taped to the wall about how things should be maintained. The house didn't feel quieter without them. It felt emptier in a different way. Like Weston and I were the unpaid staff, and Olivia was the manager waiting to critique our performance. I stopped asking Weston for backup or explanations. There was no point. Every time he tried to help, he folded under Olivia's pressure. I didn't resent him. I just accepted who he was. So I shifted gears. I opened a separate bank account. I saved every dollar Roger gave me. I stopped keeping important papers in the basement and stored them in a locked box at the machine shop. I kept my laptop and personal things in my backpack wherever I went. Anything I didn't want Olivia touching stayed off site. Roger noticed one day when he saw the box. He tapped it with a wrench. Planning something? Just being careful, I said. He nodded. Good. Always know where your exits are. I didn't smile, but I knew exactly what he meant. By the time Olivia reached the 8th month of pregnancy, I had enough money saved that I didn't feel trapped anymore. I still lived in the basement, still earned points, still did chores, still dealt with her comments, but mentally I was already out the door. All I needed was the right moment, and it was coming faster than any of us expected. Jace was born on a Friday afternoon. The delivery room was crowded with nurses, machines, and Olivia acting like she was directing a show. She kept saying things like, I'm so strong, and this is what real motherhood looks like. Every time someone offered help, she waved them away dramatically. But once we got home, the performance faded fast. She barely touched Jace unless someone was watching. When friends visited, she held him close and said, He's my whole world. As soon as the door closed, she'd hand him to Weston and say, He's fussy. You deal with it. Weston handled the night feedings, diaper changes, baths, everything. He tried to hide how tired he was, but the dark circles under his eyes gave it away. I offered to help sometimes, but Olivia always intercepted. No, Nicholas, she'd say, stepping between me and the baby. You're too rough. You don't have the right energy. So I stayed in the basement, listening to Jace cry through the vents while Weston walked laps around the living room at 2 in the morning. Around the 4-month mark, Weston mentioned a fishing trip he'd been invited to by some coworkers. It's only 3 days, he told Olivia. Just a short thing. I haven't had a break in months. She shrugged. Do whatever you want. Even I knew that tone wasn't approval, it was a setup. But Weston chose to hear permission. On the morning he left, I was eating toast when Olivia came downstairs with a duffel bag. Where are you going? I asked. She zipped the bag aggressively. My mother's, I need support. This house is draining me. What about Jace? I asked. She gave me a flat look. You can handle it. I'm 18, I said. And? You're not a child. Stop acting helpless. She picked up Jace's carrier, placed him on the couch, and walked out the door. Don't call unless it's life or death. She didn't even wait to see if I picked him up. Once I heard her car pull away, I exhaled and grabbed Jace. He was already crying. I checked his diaper, warmed a bottle, and started a routine. I treated it like a job and broke it into steps. Feed, burp, change, settle. I moved everything I needed into the basement because I didn't want to roam the house more than necessary. I didn't touch the cameras. I left them exactly where they were, quiet, blinking, and recording. If Olivia tried to rewrite what happened, I wanted the house itself to disagree with her. I kept a notebook too. Times, feedings, fussiness, sleep. I wrote down everything. Jace wasn't difficult. He just needed consistency. And once he got it, he calmed down. By the second night, I was exhausted, but he was stable. The basement felt crowded, but at least it was controlled. I slept in 2-hour stretches between his cries. Olivia didn't call. Not once. On the 3rd day, I was sitting on the floor with Jace on my chest when I heard the front door open. Weston's voice echoed down the stairs. Nick? You down there? Yeah, I said, standing up slowly. He came down the steps and froze at the sight. Bottles lined up, diapers stacked, a blanket on the concrete floor where I'd been sitting with Jace. What happened? He asked, eyes wide. Where's Olivia? She left the morning you did, I said. Went to her mom's. She left you here alone with him? His voice cracked. Yeah, 72 hours, I said. Here's the log. I handed him the notebook. And the cameras are still running, I added. If you want proof, it's all there. He flipped through it, stunned. Nick, this is... The front door slammed upstairs. Olivia's voice cut through the house. Weston, are you home? She stomped down the stairs, saw Jace in my arms, and immediately launched into a performance. I came back early because I was terrified. I couldn't stay there another minute after what he did. What I did, I repeated. She pointed at me, shaking. Yes, you cornered me emotionally. Your presence is dark and hostile. I feared for my life, Weston. I had to leave. Weston blinked, confused. Liv, what are you talking about? Nick took care of him for 3 days. She scoffed. Of course he'll say that. He forced me to go. He's been unstable for months. Here we go, I muttered. Don't talk back to me, she snapped. You create tension in this house. You always have. Weston looked between us, panicking the way he did during every conflict. Nick, maybe just apologize. Let's de-escalate. For what? I asked. For upsetting her, he said quietly. We can't start a war over this. Just apologize so we can move forward. Olivia folded her arms like she'd won. Exactly. Take responsibility, Nicholas. I handed Jace to Weston and grabbed my backpack. You're leaving? Weston asked. You told me to apologize for taking care of your kid, I said. I think that tells me everything I need to know. Nick, wait. No, I said. You asked me to go. I went through the house and took the cameras down one by one, careful and methodical, like I was collecting evidence from a crime scene. Then I packed them, shouldered my backpack, and walked out the front door while Olivia hovered behind Weston, already whispering something to him. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout. I just left, with the footage, the logs, and the certainty that I wasn't coming back. And even though I didn't know it yet, everything I did in those 72 hours would end up saving Jace's future. Ifervo! By 23, my life was predictable in the best way. I had a steady cybersecurity job, a one-room apartment, and a routine built from years of working full-time, studying at community college at night, and stacking certifications. Roger had gotten me into stable housing years earlier, and stayed one of the few people I trusted. Life was quiet, and I kept it that way. One night, just after midnight, someone knocked on my door. Nobody ever knocked. When I checked the peephole, I froze. It was Weston. He looked older than 50, thin, pale, unsteady. When I opened the door, he tried to smile. Hey, Nick, I stepped aside. Come in. He moved slowly toward the couch, gripping the wall for balance. When he sat down, his hands shook. I need to say something, he said. And I don't want you to stop me. He took a breath. I'm sorry. For everything. For letting Olivia treat you the way she did. For not standing up for you. I thought keeping peace meant keeping the family together. It didn't. It just hurt you. I didn't rush to fill the silence. He wasn't looking for comfort. He continued, voice thin. I should have protected you. I should have listened. And now, I need your help. What's going on? I asked. I'm sick, he said. Cancer. Stage 4. They say it's been growing for a long time. I missed appointments. Didn't take things seriously. Olivia kept saying she had it handled. I believed her. He rubbed his face. I shouldn't have. I sat across from him. Do you have a treatment plan? He shook his head. No. Appointments haven't been booked. Medications are all over the place. I don't think she's trying to help me anymore. He looked at me straight. I don't think she wants me to get better. Nothing in his voice sounded dramatic or exaggerated. It was just the truth settling into the room. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. I need to get my affairs in order while I still can. I don't trust her with anything. Not my care, not the house, not the savings. I should have done this years ago. He met my eyes. Help me fix what I can. I nodded once. Tell me what you want. Do you know anyone legal? He asked. Someone who can move fast? I can't do this through her. I nodded once. Yeah, I do. Tonight? He said, before she realizes I'm gone. Tonight, I agreed. I'll make the call. Rachel met us at her office within 40 minutes. She looked between us, instantly reading the situation. Mr. Weston, she said gently, Nick told me you needed legal guidance. Weston nodded. I want to protect what little I have left. My house, savings, everything. I don't want Olivia touching it. My son should handle things when I'm gone. She brought out a stack of documents. First, let's confirm ownership of the house. She reviewed the deed. This is good. You bought it before the marriage, and she was never added to the title. It's in your name. That puts us in a strong position. Weston exhaled, relieved. Good. I didn't want her taking it from Nick. Rachel continued. In your condition, the best structure to protect your assets is a spendthrift trust. You'll choose a trustee, someone responsible, to manage everything now and after you pass. There was no hesitation. Nicholas, he said immediately. He'll be the trustee. I shook my head slightly. Dad, you don't have to. I do, he interrupted. This is my decision. You're the only one I trust. She went through every line in plain terms. No loopholes, no confusion. Weston listened carefully, asked questions, and made sure he understood. Do you want to proceed? Rachel asked. Yes, Weston said. Do it. She signed the papers with steady hands. When he finished, he leaned back in the chair, exhausted but satisfied. It's done, Rachel said. Your assets are now protected. She didn't stop there. She slid another set of forms forward. Medical power of attorney, a HIPAA release, and a healthcare proxy. This covers your care, she said. It makes sure the person you trust can talk to your doctors and make decisions if you can't. Weston didn't hesitate. He signed those too. Weston closed his eyes for a moment. Thank you, he whispered. I wanted to leave something clean behind. Not chaos. I put a hand on his shoulder. We'll handle everything from here. He nodded. Let's go home. When we pulled into the driveway, the house looked nothing like the one I grew up in. Wind chimes lined the porch. Colorful flags hung from poles. A wooden board by the door read, Healing Center. Positive vibrations only. Weston sighed. She says it keeps the house spiritually aligned. Inside, the smell of incense hit harder than the air outside. Crystals covered the coffee table. Bowls of herbs, salt, and candles were scattered everywhere. The kitchen counter was stacked with dirty mugs and mismatched pill bottles. This isn't healing, I said. This is neglect. A voice drifted from the hallway. Weston? Is that you? Olivia stepped into the room wearing a layered shawl and holding a burning bundle of herbs. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Oh, she said. Nicholas returns. I brought him home, I said. She frowned at the folder sticking out of Weston's jacket. What's that? Legal documents, Weston said firmly. My decision, not yours. She stiffened. Your energy is ruining the balance I created. I ignored her. Dad, let's get you resting. As I helped him sit, Olivia stood frozen, realizing, too late, that the control she'd held for years was already gone. And for the first time since childhood, Weston wasn't siding with her. He was siding with me. Over the next several weeks, Weston's health declined fast. Not overnight, just steadily, like something slipping downhill no matter how tight you hold the rope. I managed his appointments, medication schedule, meals, and pain control. Olivia insisted she should be included, but Weston had already signed medical paperwork giving me legal authority over his care, access to his doctors, his treatment plan, and decisions if he couldn't speak for himself. When I reminded her of the treatment plan the doctor approved, she snapped, You're blocking his energetic alignment. But she never followed through on any real care. Sometimes she left in the morning and didn't return until after midnight. Jace would wander around the hallway, holding a stuffed bear by its arm, whispering, Is Mommy coming back? I never had an answer. He stayed mostly in his room, peeking out when he heard voices. If Olivia walked past him without acknowledging him, he quietly closed his door. When I checked in on him, he'd ask things like, Can you put me to sleep tonight? Mommy forgets. I nodded every time and sat with him until he drifted off. While caring for Weston, I documented everything. Missed doses when Olivia claimed she'd given them, her hours-long absences, the healing sessions she brought her friends in for, loud chanting, burning herbs, crystals placed around the bed instead of water or medication. She never checked if Weston was breathing properly. She never helped him sit up or drink. She never asked what he needed. She only complained that I was interfering with the spiritual space. One afternoon, while changing Weston's bedsheets, he looked at me with weak eyes. Thank you, he whispered. For doing this. For everything. You don't have to thank me, I said. He squeezed my hand. I chose right. About the trust. 3 days later, early in the morning, he was gone. Peacefully. With me sitting beside him. Olivia was nowhere in the house. Jace slept in the next room, unaware. I called the hospice nurse, then covered him with a clean blanket while we waited. When Jace woke up and saw me sitting quietly, he walked over slowly. Is Dad sleeping? I pulled him close. Yeah, he's resting now. He wrapped his arms around me, small and tight. Olivia showed up an hour after the hospice van left. She walked in wearing a dramatic black shawl, smudged eyeliner like she'd been crying for days. You didn't call me? She shouted. I should have been here to guide his spirit. You weren't here all week, I said. She threw her bag down. Because you kept blocking the energy. You kept poisoning the environment. Jace stepped behind me when she raised her voice. She noticed and glared. The funeral took place 2 days later. Olivia arrived in head-to-toe black lace, waving at people as if she were hosting an event. The moment someone asked how she was holding up, She placed a hand on her chest and said, "I tried everything, but Nicholas wouldn't let me heal him properly." Her parents stood beside her, both acting as though the house and finances now belonged to them. Her father whispered loudly to a relative, "Well, now things will finally be managed correctly." Her mother nodded, giving me a dirty look. Jace refused to stand next to Olivia. He grabbed my hand and stayed glued to my side. When Olivia tried to pull him toward her, he yanked his arm away. It embarrassed her in front of everyone, and she hissed, "You're confusing him." "No," I said. "He knows who takes care of him." She clenched her jaw and turned away. After the funeral, we gathered at the lawyer's office. Olivia and her parents walked in like they were preparing to collect a prize. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed smugly. "Well," she said, "let's get this done. Weston always promised he'd make sure I was taken care of." The attorney opened the folder. "Mrs. Olivia, I should clarify before we begin. Your husband established a spendthrift trust prior to his passing. He came voluntarily, was evaluated as competent, and signed of his own free will." Olivia frowned. "What are you talking about?" The attorney continued. "The trust places the house and accounts under the management of the appointed trustee. And prior to his passing, Weston updated his beneficiary designations. His life insurance now pays into the trust." She smirked. "Which is obviously me." "No," he said. "Weston chose Nicholas." Her entire posture snapped forward. "He would never do that. Nicholas manipulated him." Rachel, seated beside the attorney, spoke calmly. "I was present for the signing. So was the doctor who verified his competency. Weston made every decision himself." Olivia's parents erupted. "This is illegal. This is fraud. He was pressured." The attorney slid the notarized documents forward. "Everything is fully recorded. There was no pressure." I didn't say a word. There was nothing to argue. Jace sat quietly beside me, feet swinging above the floor. Before we came in, the attorney had made a call. Not to decide custody, that wasn't his job, but to make sure there were witnesses and a paper trail if Olivia tried to snatch Jace and disappear. There was already an open file. Hospice had flagged concerns weeks ago, and Olivia had been screaming, in front of neighbors, that she was taking her son whether anyone liked it or not. CPS agreed to send an investigator to the office because it was neutral ground, and everyone was already here. When the subject shifted to custody, the temperature in the room dropped further. The CPS investigator wasn't new to this family. She opened her folder and summarized the reports. Nicholas documented repeated instances of neglect, missed medications, prolonged absences, environmental hazards, and inappropriate reliance on non-medical rituals. We also have Jace's statements about being left unattended. Jace looked down, hugging his bear. The investigator continued, "Based on these findings and the existing case history, we're initiating an emergency safety plan today. Jace will remain with Nicholas temporarily while the court reviews guardianship." Olivia shot to her feet. "He is my son. I am his mother. And the court will review formal guardianship," the investigator said, unfazed. "I filed for emergency guardianship that afternoon. Because the CPS case was already active, the clerk pushed it straight to the on-call family court judge. By late afternoon, I walked out with an emergency ex parte order. Temporary guardianship granted, with a formal hearing date set for the following week. It wasn't permanent yet, but it was enough to keep Jace out of her reach. When I brought Jace home that night, he clung to me again and whispered, "Do I stay with you now?" "Yeah," I said. "You stay with me." He nodded into my shirt and didn't let go. As I carried him upstairs, Olivia stood at the bottom of the steps, shaking with rage. "This home is mine," she growled. "You will not take my son or my legacy." But legally, emotionally, and practically, she'd already lost both. Olivia and her parents refused to accept anything that happened in the lawyer's office. From the moment we returned home, they acted like the trust didn't exist. They stayed in the house, slammed doors, shouted down the hallway, and told anyone who would listen that I had stolen everything. One morning, I stepped outside to throw out the trash and saw Olivia's mother talking to a neighbor. "It's all fraudulent," she hissed. "That boy tricked Weston when he was dying." Olivia joined her, raising her voice. "Nicholas is brainwashing my son. He took my home, my child, my life." Jace peeked out the front door, saw them yelling, and immediately hid behind my leg. I put a hand on his shoulder. "Stay with me." The shouting continued as if we weren't standing there. Olivia pointed at me. "He's manipulating Jace. He's turning him against his own mother." Her father added, "Everyone knows Weston wouldn't choose him over real family." I stayed calm. "The trust is valid. Dad signed everything willingly. It's documented." Olivia marched up the walkway. "He was manipulated in his final hours. You stole his mind." Before I could respond, Rachel stepped out of her car and walked toward us. Actually, she said, Weston was evaluated as fully competent. I've submitted sworn statements from the attending physician and the attorney. Olivia froze, then screamed, Lies! Rachel didn't flinch. There is no path where this ends the way you think it will. Inside, I pulled the door shut and locked it. Jace kept holding my sleeve. Are they staying? He whispered. For now, I said, but not for long. I gathered every document I had. Trust paperwork, medical logs, CPS findings, and the written threats Olivia had already screamed in front of witnesses, and I took it straight back to the attorney. He didn't file a trespass complaint. He filed an emergency petition, a temporary protective order, and an order for exclusive possession of the residence, tied to the active child welfare case. The clerk flipped through the attachments, paused on the CPS paperwork, then looked back up at me. This goes to the on-call judge, she said. You'll hear something fast. The next morning, the order was signed. Temporary. Immediate. Olivia and her parents were not allowed in the home, and they were not allowed near Jace. I drove home, parked across the street, and waited. When the sheriff's deputy pulled up for a civil standby, my stomach tightened. A second car followed, along with a locksmith. Olivia's parents burst out of the house like they could scare paperwork back into disappearing. Olivia shoved past him, shaking with rage. Your father would never choose you over us. He did, I said, voice steady, and he signed it himself. Her father's face twisted. You ungrateful! The deputy lifted a hand. Ma'am, sir, you've been served. This is a court order. Olivia's father shouted, You can't do this. This is our son-in-law's home. The deputy didn't react. You need to leave the residence now. You may take essentials. Medication, wallet, keys, phone, a change of clothes. Anything else will be scheduled for a supervised pickup. Olivia started yelling over him, but he kept his tone flat. You have a short window to gather essentials. After that, you're out. This is my home, Olivia shouted, voice cracking. He stole everything. It was never yours, the deputy replied. You have no legal right to remain here. They tried anyway. Pure panic and spite. Olivia's mother reached for a lamp. Her father made a grab at a painting like he could yank the past off the wall. Stop, the deputy said immediately. Essentials only. Personal documents, medication, clothes. That's it. Her father froze, jaw working like he wanted to argue with a uniform. He didn't win that argument. They dropped it, muttering curses at me. Jace pressed his face into my side and refused to look at them. Olivia rounded on me one more time. You've ruined my life. You think you can just take my son? CPS placed him with me, I said. The court agreed. He's my child. He hasn't lived like he was, I replied. She lunged forward like she wanted to grab Jace, but the deputy stepped between us. Ma'am, you need to finish gathering your things. She screamed, This isn't over! But it already was. The removal crew escorted them down the driveway and onto the sidewalk. They stood there, clutching their bags, still screaming while I closed the front door. The silence that followed didn't feel triumphant. It just felt still. The locksmith changed the locks while the deputy watched. When the door clicked shut again, it sounded final. For the first time in years, the house wasn't vibrating with tension. Jace looked up at me. Can we go now? Yeah, I said. Let's get out of here. I spent the next week clearing out the incense bowls, crystals, trash bags, and piles of junk Olivia had brought in. I didn't keep anything that reminded me of her or the chaos she brought. The house wasn't a home. It was a reminder of every compromise Weston had made to keep peace. Once it was clean, I listed it for sale. Jace sat on the stairs watching me tape a small "for sale" sign to the front door. Are we moving far? He asked. Not too far, I said. Just somewhere better. He nodded. Good. We moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. Quiet building, clean hallways, nothing complicated. Within the first week, Jace started sleeping through the night. He ate more. He talked more. He laughed at cartoons. He followed me around the kitchen asking questions about everything. I filed the final guardianship paperwork the next month. The judge approved it without hesitation. One evening, while packing the last box from the house, Jace climbed into the passenger seat of my car and buckled himself in. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me, waiting. I turned the key. No speeches. No emotional last looks at the house. We drove away in silence, calm, steady, final. This time, the cycle ended. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.